Last week, something peculiar happened. For a brief period, Fortnite, a sandbox survival co-op game from Epic Games, accidentally enabled cross-platform play between Xbox One and PS4, something that, according to Epic Games, happened in error. Despite the brief existence of cross-platform play between Microsoft and Sony systems, it reiterated the obvious. Cross-platform play between PS4 and Xbox One is something that can easily be accomplished. If it wasn't, how could something like this happen supposedly in error? Now, according to Eurogamer, this enabling of cross-platform was first noticed by some Reddit users. They noticed a gamer tag with a space in it, which PS4 gamer tags don't allow for. Some further investigation ultimately proved what they suspected. Xbox gamers were playing in their PS4 version of the game. Of course, this situation was quickly rolled back, and as of now, there is no cross-platform play going on Fortnite between PS4 and Xbox players. But what this has done is brought the discussion back to the forefront over cross-platform play. As we know, Sony is the odd one out in this situation. We already have plenty of examples of cross-platform play between PC and Xbox, as well as even Nintendo apparently going forward. But Sony seems resistant to allowing this to happen for the most part. The odd exception being, of course, Rocket League, which has cross-platform play with the PC. But there is absolutely zero cross-platform play between Xbox and PlayStation 4, solely because Sony refuses to allow it to happen. The guys at Microsoft, including Phil Spencer, have repeatedly come out and said, hey, we want to do this, we should do this, and Sony is always the one kind of dragging their heels on what seems to be something that everyone should want and seems to be good for the industry as a whole. Sony has, in the past, defended their stance on not allowing cross-platform play, but their defense is weak to say the least. Jim Ryan, head of global sales and marketing for PlayStation, back in the summer, defended their decision by saying, I quote, "Exposing what in many cases are children to external influences we have no ability to manage or look after, it's something we have to think about very carefully." I mean, they're trying to play up that they're doing this for the children, but look, there's nothing worse on online games on Xbox compared to PlayStation. There's nothing about enabling cross-platform play that will suddenly expose them to things they aren't already exposed to just by the nature of being online. PlayStation Network has its fair share of trolls and bullies and all the typical problems of online gaming. Bringing in a new audience for them to interact with isn't going to change that. So this defense is weak to say the least. So the question then is, why is Sony resisting cross-platform play so hard? It's simple. They are the premier console right now. Since this generation started back in 2013, the PS4 has stayed on top of sales for the last 4 years now. There's been a few moments where the Xbox has had good sales, but for the most part, the PS4 is well and ahead, the best-selling console this generation. As a result, Sony doesn't really need to take on these kinds of initiatives to expand their player base or to get more sales because they already have that. They're set. Whereas Microsoft and the Xbox, on the other hand, as I said, have been struggling with sales, and as most people know, have very few exclusives, so they need to take these kinds of initiatives to open up their fan base. This is why they initiated the Xbox Play Anywhere program a year ago to really bridge the gap between the Xbox and the PC. I really want to do the same thing with PlayStation, because I feel that Microsoft isn't so much going to be a producer of games anymore, at least not exclusive ones, but more of just a general service for gamers that they want to have to be open for everybody. This makes sense, considering it really is their own avenue forward. They aren't making the games that are going to sell their systems, so they need to provide the systems of the future with the features of the future, which include cross-platform play and lack of exclusivity. The PlayStation, on the other hand, is still stuck in the past and is still treating this console generation like any other, where sales is all that matters and you get sales by having good exclusives. Now, this isn't all bad because the exclusives on the PlayStation have been exceptionally good, especially this year. You look at what came out exclusively, at least console-wise, for the PlayStation. You have Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 4, Neo, and Nier Automata. These are all games that an Xbox or Nintendo gamer cannot get, and the only one that PC players can get is Nier. These are all exceptional games that came out this year, and if you look going forward, Microsoft and the Xbox has very little, whereas PlayStation still has The Last of Us 2, God of War, Shadow of Colossus remake, they just released a new Uncharted game, amongst many other exclusives coming down the line. What this means is that the PlayStation is going to continue to sell. It's going to continue to be the best system on the market for games. This is great for people who own the system, and for people who have the money to purchase multiple systems so as to not be locked out by system exclusives. Because the games they're releasing are good. If the games they were releasing were not up to par, then they would probably be more willing to enable crossplay. So essentially what it comes down to is why water down your exclusive and very good product when you don't have to? Because that's the simple reality of it. The PlayStation does not have to enable crossplay because it's already where it wants to be. Why do something that provides very little immediate benefit for yourself while providing great benefit for others? It just doesn't make sense from a business standpoint, and so long as Sony continues to have success with its exclusives, it will remain this way. The only problem with this, like I said earlier, is a very old school way of dealing with the console generation. This is how it has been up till now, whereas everybody else is getting ready to make the push forward to a more open, inclusive gaming atmosphere. And Microsoft, to their credit, is the one leading this charge, and I believe that this is the future. Barring people from playing certain games because they don't own the right system is, as a lifelong gamer, been one of the most frustrating aspects of it. Until just this year, I didn't own a PlayStation, I didn't have a PS3, so I missed out on a lot of games, including classics like The Last of Us, and it always frustrated me not to be able to play those games. I did buy a PS4, simply because, as I pointed out, the PlayStation strategy is working. They have the exclusives, and I could not deny myself the experience of those games any longer. Even though I feel that their business tactic is outdated, it is still working because the benefits of what Microsoft and the rest of the industry is trying to do have not come to fruition yet. They have not provided a real boost or a real incentive for PlayStation to back it. Now, of course, if 2 years down the line, Sony has less good exclusives, then they may ultimately agree to cross-platform play. The other issue, too, and probably why Sony doesn't see the need to do this, is when you look at the two systems, Sony is definitely, and the PlayStation is definitely more of a single-player game kind of system. Yes, it's got online features, but as has been the case since its beginning, Xbox Live has always been the more efficient and well-rounded online system. Up until recently, like Call of Duty and games like Destiny and stuff were the place to play them was on the Xbox or on the PC. Now, yes, PlayStation does have exclusive rights that Xbox once had for those kinds of games, but I still feel like those who are getting a system specifically for multiplayer probably gravitate more towards the Xbox, simply because Xbox Live is a more reputable system and program for online gaming. Whereas Sony is definitely leading the way in exclusive single-player titles. All those games I named off before are all, for the most part, completely single-player with a few maybe multiplayer elements akin to like what Dark Souls has. So Sony appeals to a specific market that simply does not benefit from cross-platform play because they're not playing games online. So I think part of the reason why Sony is not jumping on this, not to protect the children, it's not because they think it's some terrible thing, it's because one, they don't need to because of their current success and exclusive games, and two, their core base does not benefit from it. For example, myself, I did not buy the PlayStation to play any games online. I bought it for single-player exclusives and will continue to use it for single-player exclusives. All my multiplayer gaming will be done on my PC. So for me, not having cross-platform play with PlayStation isn't a big deal to me, but going forward, it is the future. And right now, cross-platform, bridging the gap between exclusives, is strictly being done in the multiplayer sphere. When Sony will need to really consider cross-platform play is when the idea of exclusives really starts to take a hit. As it is, I've argued in previous videos that exclusives are a problem. Like I said earlier, it's not fair to block out a large portion of the gamer community from playing a game simply because they cannot afford or just don't have the correct system. I believe this is an archaic way of selling games and needs to eventually be done away with. But something needs to happen to force Sony's hand in this regard. And as long as they're selling systems based off their exclusives, it's going to happen. I admit, I'm part of this problem because I bought the PlayStation 4. It's as simple as that. But I think in the long run, what Microsoft and the other realms of gaming are doing is the future. I think at some point we're going to be done with consoles as we know it, and we will have a fully open, completely inclusive gaming atmosphere and market. And when that happens, the potential and for what games can be will really take off in a way we can only imagine right now. So, to conclude, yes, Sony is holding the industry back by not opening it up its doors, so to speak, to all gamers. But it's done in an understandable way because they have the exclusives and they have the sales. Hopefully, though, at some point when this starts to change, or when new ideas get thrown around and cross-platform play and inclusiveness becomes more popular with the rest of the gaming community, Sony will see the light, so to speak, and end this old-school, restrictive, exclusive way of dealing with games. But until then, I have no choice but to have a PlayStation 4 because I just want to play their games. So yeah, that's about it for this JJ and Games discussion. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, subscribe, and see you again soon.